Oh, Stilton. We're talking about 300-year-old cheese. Let's take a look at him. Okay. So I look at this cheese and I notice, well, let's start with the rind. So it has an orangey white rind that looks like it was once wet, as it was, little sort of dots of both calcium, but also the white mold there. And you can see little holes. We'll talk about what they are in a second. So that rind is probably 60, 80 years old, not that long. In the old days, they did it differently. Inside, this sort of blotchy spider web pattern with these distinctive long lines. Again, what are they about? Coming to them again. So, and the color, we're looking for a blue-green mold for perfect ripeness, a blue-green mold, which we've got here, and the paste in between shouldn't be white and it shouldn't be gray or brown. It should be sort of a gently, slightly like a creamy color with hints of kind of ochre, which we've got here. We've got this dark area around the edge, quite a lot of ingress there. That suggests this Stilton is a little bit old at times, but the main body of the cheese looks brilliant. But Stilton is narrow, Stilton is specific, Stilton is clear what Stilton is. Only 5, 6-ish makers in the UK, and Stilton can only be made in Derbyshire, Leicestershire, and Nottinghamshire, 3 counties in the Midlands. It's made in the style of the northern British cheeses, which is the Lancashires, the Cheshires, the Wensleydales. These are white cheeses, and in fact, white Stilton is a thing and very popular. Crumbly, high acidity, relatively quick make. The acidity rises, so it's crumbly initially, but add the blue in, and the blue will bring it together. But we need to make that blue live. So the molds go in at the milk stage as a tincture, so they're sitting there dormant. Dormant there, the little spores are ready to go. But to make them start, we do needling at around the 4-week mark. We put these holes in like knitting needles, okay, straight in. And this piece here we can see nicely demonstrates. This piece nicely demonstrates how the needle's going. And where there is air, there will be mold, as we can see there. Now, because it's a crumbly cheese with loosely packed curds, the mold can get between the curds, and that's why it makes this kind of what I think of as a spider web. But here we can see almost like little chains of mold paths through the cheese there. Now, it's important to understand that the mold does not just make for blue. It actually breaks down the curd into a paste, and that smooth pastiness is so important to Stilton. So having got that 4-week mark, when is the cheese ready? Usually around 12 weeks. So you pierce at 1 month, ready at about 3. And that actually goes to why Stilton is a Christmas cheese, because the best milk to make Stilton from is that end of season, tired pasture milk at that August, September moment when they've brought up the cows, the calves have come through. Now we've got the hay coming off, maybe even silage. Those fields have worked hard. And now they're looking for a little bit of lower fat milk, and that's going to make the best Stilton. History of this cheese? Well, it suddenly appeared and went viral in about 1720. Right, 1724, a guy called Daniel Defoe, who was a great English writer at the time, described Stilton as the English Parmesan. No one has any idea what he meant by that. I think the best guess was that Parmesan was Italy's greatest cheese. This is Britain's greatest cheese. The story, though, is more complicated because although it's made in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, and Leicestershire, it was made famous by Stilton, which is a town in Cambridgeshire. So how did that happen? A guy called Cooper Thornhill, right? He was a publican. He had a pub called the Bell Inn in Stilton. And Stilton was on the Great North Road, London to Edinburgh. Everybody travelled that road. If you want to get things noticed, be on that road. So Cooper was out on his holidays or something, out in Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, Derbyshire, and he came across Stilton for sale. And he goes, this is the cheese. And he then takes it back to his pub, sells it on the tables. People really like it. He starts selling it wholesale. People start buying from him, starts heading into London. He heads back to the Midlands saying, someone's got to make me this cheese in bigger quantities. And Stilton goes viral. That you might call the male story. The female story are the people who made the cheese. And there are 3 really important women here. We have a lady called Lady Beaumont, right? She is almost certainly the first maker of Stilton, made as a family recipe only for her own use. Next up is a lady called Mrs. Orton. I don't even know what her first name is, right? She appears to be the first person who makes this commercially, and it's probably her cheese that Cooper Thornhill meets. This kind of thing is being made all over Derbyshire, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire. Lots of different recipes. Maybe they're blue, maybe they ain't. So along comes somebody called Francis Paulet. Now, apparently Cooper Thornhill gets into a deal with her, and she is quite the innovator, quite the great cheesemaker. And she takes this recipe, and she is the person who makes it Stilton. Stilton as we know it is today. She takes that nugget and turns it into one of the world's great cheeses. So she is, I don't know, I think she gets most of the plaudits here because she makes it work. So the way that you make Stilton today is not what Francis Paulet did, okay? The introduction of blue molds, this Penicillium Roqueforti, is now done deliberately, and the cheesemakers know what they're doing. But Frances did not. She needed the mold to come to her rather than her to get it. And to do that, she used to allow her cheeses to crack and dry and open up, and the mold would then go in. So in the mouth, its body, its texture, we're looking for a creamy smoothness, and you can sort of see that in the way it breaks. It sort of squishes. It also crumbles. It crumbles and squishes. It's a squishy, crumbly cheese. Sometimes you get a little bit of granularity because the calcium crystals can build up in the mold veins. A little crunch tends to be only at age. So our primary taste is savory, salty. That's where it's at. That's the big one, right? Inside that, we get the supporting flavors of the piquancy, the spice of the blue cheese. Really powerful mushroom in there as well. But I want to say, and bitterness is often seen as a negative, there is an inherent bitterness in good Stilton. Different Stilton makers have different interpretations, but if there's no bitterness, it sort of doesn't hang together. It just ends up being sweet and boring like everyone else. That bitterness, the herbaceousness that's based in Stilton makes it what it is. But you do need a kind of earthiness. There are some fruits that come into Stilton. People talk about ripe pear, and I think that's true. 6 month Stiltons, that are excellent, but for the most part, go for those 3.5 month Stiltons. Still a lot of moisture. The creaminess is really good, and the blue's still in balance. Oh, Stilton!